Perspective Force sponsors show 10% Fitter Show and is sponsoring the release of the 10% Fitter method to the world. Understand the reason why I'm doing this. Why am I giving away all my knowledge for free? Because my father passed away at a very early age, at 45, from living unsustainably, and that started my mission of creating human sustainability in the world. And that's what Perspective Force focuses on as a corporate coaching company. We have 7 umbrellas of coaching. Health is just one of those categories, right? So 10% Fitter method is one of the categories of Perspective Force. Last week we oh cool, Adam, that's from Romania, Germany, man, you're all over the place. So obviously you can hear me because you're responding. Thanks, man. But anyway, so we're gonna talk today a lot about 4 major components. We're gonna talk about the mind. We're gonna talk about internal health. We're gonna talk about nourishment and movement. Those are yeah, sorry, man, it's a bit skippy. My is strong enough to be great with it, but I'm trying to hopefully it does better, with as time goes by. But best I can do is best I can do. But anyway, so right, those are the 4 main components. That's what 10% Fitter stands on. And why is this important? The problem is that most people, when they try to help their health, improve their health, use their health as a vehicle to reach any destination in life and ultimately performance, they usually fixate on 1 or 2 components. They don't see the big picture, right? We get lost looking at a tree instead of seeing the entire forest and seeing how that plays out. So if you truly want to optimize something, think about your business, right? When you're trying to run your business, would you just work on sales and not work on marketing? You would get an improvement. Yes, your business would get better by working on sales more than you did before, right? You should see an improvement. But what would be best if you worked at marketing at the same time as you worked at sales? But also, don't forget about your operations. Don't forget about your recruiting. Don't forget about your, onboarding and development and all the other components that happen within your business. But the same thing is happening within your body. So if that's going on within your system, we need to understand that you have to treat yourself and, more importantly, optimize yourself complete picture. You hear holistic approach being talked about a lot, but unfortunately, we don't do that with wellness very often. So that's what I'm going to try to teach you guys today. The goal of this program is not necessarily to give you all the information. I can't, guys. I really can't. I'm trying into 25 trainings to give you as much as I can, and apparently somebody already unsubscribed because I gave them too much health knowledge for free. That's how sad it is. People can't sit to 25 trainings. They want a quick fix. You want that hit of, hey, get a 6-pack in 30 days, and you want to do that. Not going to happen, guys. And I'm just telling you, I've been doing this a long time. The stuff that I'm giving away is worth well over $10,000 in learning, but it's a digital product, so I could just do this, release it, and then keep using it to help the world get better. But anyway, so let's kind of dive in and talk about, myself, Coach Anton, health life coach, but that's really not what's important. What's important is what we're learning today. So starting out with the first component, and that's going to be the mind, right? The mind is the first place that we start, because a lot of times people start worrying about everything else, but this thing is the most important. It has to do with your motivation, it has to do with your happiness, has to do with your feeling of good, right? So many different components. I'm going to cover that, but that's always the first place you should start. You guys have no idea how many people I've seen. I've worked with over 300 clients one-on-one and thousands in groups, and how many people I've seen throw money at the wall. But right, when I was a young coach, I used to blame myself for everything. But then I realized they weren't ready in their mind. They're ready for change wasn't there. Their mindset wasn't there. Their brain chemicals wasn't there. And they're beating themselves up all the time and thinking that it's all their fault, right? I'm lazy, I'm this, I'm that. But it's not. We just don't understand how all of this connects. How does my mind connect to my desire to lift weights? Right? When you start to understand that, you don't beat yourself up as much. You go, there's something broken, but it's not me. It's something that's just like a switch that's got to be flipped on, or something more I got to get in my system, or something less I got to get in my system. So from there, we get into the first component of the mind. And the very first component that we talk about is identity, right? Something that you won't hear a lot of health coaches discuss is your identity. What does your identity have to do with your health? Everything, guys. Because what you don't understand, your mind sets up the environment for your body, right? And your body actually sets up the environment for your mind and vice versa. But if you struggle with your identity, you're going to struggle with your health because you're going to have issues that we're going to discuss about in different areas here. So the first thing within identity that I want you guys to consider and I want you to think about is your stories. Guys, this is powerful. If you're just joining, we're just talking about the higher level of understanding health, right? What are all the different components and things like that? What is going on when it comes down to how our mind connects to our body, how our internal health connects to our nutrition, our mind, and all those other things. So right now we're diving into the first component of the mind, and that's your identity. These three stories, if you learn to understand these three stories, you'll change your life. Guys, I'm not exaggerating this at all, and I'm trying to simplify it, but it really is that simple. If in any given moment you can have the self-awareness to understand these three stories, you'll change your life. And what are these three stories? So story number one is the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. So think about, I want you to right now put yourself in a physical state in a room that you've been before, right? Maybe you're in an environment with your boss, maybe you're with your family, maybe you're outside socializing, networking, whatever it may be. I want you to think about how you felt in that moment. I want you to think about an uncomfortable environment preferably, right? If you can capture what stories you're telling yourself in that moment, you're going to be amazed at what you can get from that. First comes self-awareness and then comes self-management. You will not be self-managed until you become self-aware. And self-aware with 10% fitter system is a very specific self-awareness that we teach. So stories we tell ourselves, right? What am I thinking about this environment? What am I telling myself about myself? A lot of that has to do with confidence, right? If I'm in a bad state, I'm going to tell myself the wrong story. So how does this play out with the mind, right? I regularly talk about a powerful human and a caged animal. Those are two beings that coexist within you all the time. But unfortunately, they don't like to live in balance. And that caged animal in modern world, modern society, tends to dominate that powerful human. Should get that clock off the screen. Tends to dominate the powerful human. So think about this, right? You are living in a heightened state of stress. You're not feeding your body right. You're not moving enough. Whatever the reason is that your system is not the way it's supposed to be. This puts your body into survival mode. It takes you out of thriving and it puts you into survival. Why does that matter? You're looking at yourself and you're telling your story about yourself. If you're in survival mode, you're not going to tell yourself a bunch of positive things. You're living in fear. You're living in a version of pain. You're living in survival. You're living instinctually. You're not living in this thriving prefrontal cortex where you're a powerful human. So your story is going to be a story of fear, story of survival. That's not what you need. So that's how your mindset is impacted by your physiology. From there, we get stories we tell about others, right? So you have a story that in the same moment, think about it in that same moment. What is the story you told yourself about yourself? But at the same time, what were you saying about others? Their motives, their intentions, their relationship with you, interactions with you. How are you interpreting those? Once again, if that caged animal is acting up, we can't get the powerful human to act. When the caged animal is acting up, powerful human shuts off because the caged animal is more dominant, is more survival driven, and when our body has fumes to run on, it's always going to go to caged animal to survive. So stories we tell about others, right? So what are we saying about those folks? And the last stories we think others are telling about us. So it's not just what are we saying about them. It's not just what are we saying about ourselves. It's how are we perceiving everybody perceiving ourselves. Here's the crazy part. Many of you struggle. I'm seeing people jump off because it's too advanced. This stuff is complex, and I know that. So those of you that are listening, if you apply this over 7 weeks, guys, I have zero doubt your life will change. But you have to break away from a traditional sense of what you think you know. Because when it comes down to connection of health to your behavior and your social environment and your choices, our society doesn't know nearly enough. They're not even touching it. Like I'm talking about 1% of 1% understand this stuff. So yeah, unfortunately, it's not sexy, and you want to kind of move on and get to the hot stuff. Tell me how to get a 6-pack. Tell me how to run faster. Tell me how to. No, it doesn't work like that. It's not that simple because you won't succeed unless you get this. But anyway, so thank you for those that are staying on. I know that it's not the exciting, sexy stuff, but I don't care. Stories we think telling others about us. But here's the thing, guys. I want you to just point out a really cool thing. Thanks, Adam. Take a look at it later. No biggie. I appreciate you tuning in. I want you to really understand a fact here. Who controls the narrative? You. You're the only one that controls the narrative. Those people on the outside have nothing to do with the stories you're telling yourself. Most of the time, those stories are inaccurate because you're not living in a healthy life. You're not living in a healthy way. Your body is not in a state of thriving. So now, everybody's solving organizational problems, work problems, where the greatest limiting factor is your own mind. People, stop it. You're wasting so much mind investing in technology, investing into development, personal development, all this business crap when your mind is broken. Until this thing gets fixed and gets optimized, you're going to continue to move through molasses. From there, we get into, from our stories, we understand our beliefs, right? Because our stories lead us to a belief, right? Experiences lead to stories, stories lead to beliefs. And we talked about the results pyramid when I discussed last week the importance of journaling, why we need to journal, why it works, and what the science behind of it is. And all of it within 10% Fitter is based on this pyramid. If you want to change, you don't change results by changing actions. It seems logical, right? But your actions are rooted deep from who you are. And if you're broken and your mindset is off, your stories are off, guess what your beliefs are? So now you're living in an environment that could be a perfectly normal environment. But because your beliefs are biased due to your experience and living in this kind of survival mode, now the environment sucks. Where it's not really the environment, it's just your state of being. And we're going to talk about that here in a sec. So the next thing we're covering is core values, right? I'm just going to throw a bunch of information, guys. This is not deep. If you're looking for depth, continue to watch. A lot of these things will get broken down into 25 episodes. But core values, right? Core values are really misunderstood. There's a big difference between a belief and a core value. Majority of the people that talk about core values don't actually have core values by definition, because core value is something you will not break. It's something that no matter what, you will hold that value. How many of you live that way? That you've identified all your core values and you consistently live in congruence with those beliefs? Not many. And that's what creates cognitive dissonance in our mind and our body, where subconscious and the conscious have fights with each other and make us feel not good. Because what we believe deep on the inside, what our core values are, we're not acting them on the outside, or we haven't identified them. Hey, brother, thanks for joining in, Jeremy. I appreciate it, man. So those core values, they're not just something that's good to think about. They're not something they just kind of make identification and they're, these different things you see on the screen. That's what we talk about. Oh, I'm responsible, integrity. But what does that mean to you? Is integrity truly your core value? Do you put truth before compassion if that's the case? Right? So if integrity truly is your core value, you will never lie at any cost. Doesn't matter what the outcome is. If your wife comes in and says, does this dress look good? You're going to say no if it doesn't, because that's truly a core value. So be careful when you select your core values. They need to be absolute. You will not bend, shift, or do anything different than your core value. So I usually say absolute yeses, absolute no. Every time I'm faced with a situation, every time I see this, I will say yes to it. And every time I see the situation, I will say no to it, right? Whatever that means to you, it's not for me to determine. But you better have these things set in stone. From core values, now we're getting away from our identity, and we're moving into the next component of mind, is your mental health, right? This is where our society likes to break it up and talk about health and mental health in different conversations. No, guys, what are you doing? What are these people saying? Like, a person's coming in, and I've been through so many mental health workshops and seminars, and the first thing they dive into your feelings, your emotions, what to think, what to say to yourself. Important components, don't get me wrong. But what is the root cause of all of those things? We just talked about it. It's your physiology. Physiology starts that. You think your mind is as easily going to be shifted into a thriving mode by not changing the physiology? Absolutely not, guys. And I've reversed this in hundreds of people. If anybody want to have a discussion, an argument about mental health, this is something I'm passionate about. I'm tired of people, charlatans that don't understand fully, robbing people of time or of money, promising something they can't deliver. Because just talking about feelings isn't going to solve mental health. It's an important component. It's not a system in itself. So let's talk about some of these mental health issues, right? So perception of our reality. That's one of the first areas that I want you to understand. We just talked about stories. We just talked about how they all matter. So how does that connect into mental health? If that limbic system is instinctually in survival, what does our reality look like? What are we interpreting the world as dangerous, as coming after us, scarcity, right? We don't live in abundance. We don't live in this positive mindset. We live in a negative survival mindset. And here people talking about feelings as the most important thing when it comes down to mental health. Your state of health is the most important thing for mental health, guys. Bottom line. So perception of reality, we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are, right? So that's something to understand. If you're seeing the world as all of a sudden bad and you woke up one day and everything's horrible. I was talking to a friend yesterday. He woke up feeling anxious. His blood sugar was crashed out. We analyzed everything, and guess what? His stress is up, and that was causing his nutrition not to do as well. His digestion was poor, and all those feelings came from inside his body, but he's interpreting it as a mental health problem. What did he do? Worked on his yoga, worked on his meditation, rebounded his blood sugar, and he felt better the rest of the day. Those are choices you can make. They're not complex, these abstract ideas that mental health is. They're literally like a checkbox you go through, become present, address your body, get the right story in your head, and you feel better that fast. So remember, you don't see the world as it is. We see things as we are. So if you're different, look inside first. Working through our feelings, right? That's another thing that's important. And that's really the one that people only index on. They really focus on if you have mental health issues, it means that you're not working on your feelings properly. Something that you're not dealing with, something that you're pushing away. That's not always the case. There's other components, but it is an important component. Work on your addict. We talked about relationship with food, and we'll touch on it in a second, but I covered it last weekend. If you don't have your mental addict organized, if you have boxes in there that are hidden, you put those boxes away and you don't want to revisit those boxes because they're painful, they make you remember stuff from childhood or trauma, guess what? If you don't work through that, they're going to keep showing up. That caged animal that we talked about, if you don't deal with your feelings, is going to be a problem. Because if an animal is in a cage, they need to be still nurtured. They need to be fed. They need to be taken for walks, let out in the wild for a little bit of exercise. If you constantly keep an animal in a cage, it'll become problematic. So work through those emotions to nurture that caged animal that lives in your limbic system. From there, the next component is what I already kind of mentioned. If you want to master your mental health, you have to become self-aware. You have to start to not just become mentally self-aware. You have to become mechanically self-aware. What do I mean by mechanical self-awareness? I'm talking about the way that our body experiences everything it experiences. What state are we in? Something I regularly talk about is doing a 5-minute mind-body scan when we're in a state that we don't want to be in. Understanding what's been created, understanding how to get out of it, all those things. You can do it by journaling. That's why we talked about journaling as a very first workshop, and you guys can go back and watch this and catch the rewind. By the way, if you want to watch all of these and get access to the homework assignments that are provided for this, go to www.prospectiveforce.com/10% fitter, spell out percent. And then you'll get access to the other notifications of the other 20 workshops that are coming up, as well as catch the recordings and homeworks from the other ones, because there's some PDFs and different things I send out. But anyway, so go there, register, follow 10% fitter, hashtag on LinkedIn if you want to be notified when all of this happens. But anyway, guys, so self-awareness is an important piece. It's something that we like to talk about, but we don't really completely understand it. It's because it's such a buzzword, right? Everybody's like, oh, I'm self-aware. Yeah, I am. Are you really? When you're in a moment of chaos in your life, can you slow down, assess the environment, assess your body, assess your mind, and identify what's causing it, right? If you can't, you really are not as self-aware as you think. We like to over-index on self-awareness because we think we understand it. Guys, not true. I'm telling you, I've worked with people that come in, I'm self-aware, they start pointing things out, they start arguing with you. Yeah, no, I'm not really self-aware. From self-awareness, there's a very important component that's already kind of been mentioned in a way, but it's our self-talk, right? We know there's research out there of like molecular response to positive talk and molecular response to negative talk. You've seen those experiments, how bacteria grow a certain way and fungus grows a certain way, but you're the same way. What you tell yourself and hear, your body will experience. If it's positive, you'll feel positive. If it's negative, you'll feel negative. There's so many people that destroy themselves in their head, right? And it's because the mind is not where it is. It's not just about, I'm going to choose to say these things. Remember, if the caged animal is not being taken care of, it's overwhelming the powerful human. It doesn't let powerful human to make decisions, to think, and we're constantly being negative with that caged animal, beating ourselves up, telling ourselves how we're not enough, telling ourselves how we can't be successful, how risk is scary, how we're going to fail. All those stories start to go on. But guess what? It's not as simple as just what you're saying. It's the state that you're in and what you're saying. I hope you're starting to catch the picture that there's nothing that happens in the body without affecting something else. And in order to fix something completely and optimize it, you have to see the whole picture, see the forest, stop getting lost in the weeds. From there, the next component of brain that we want to focus on is brain chemical balance. And this is probably one of the least understood and utilized areas in business, because so many people are experiencing burnout right now, right? And burnout is very, very misunderstood. Burnout, most importantly, affects your brain chemical balance. That's what causes you to not enjoy your job anymore, to have health problems, start getting sick all the time. That has to do with a lot of your brain chemicals that then in turn impact our physiology and our other chemicals in our body. So understand that if you want to capture your mind and get better at it and really understand how to become a powerful human, brain chemicals have everything to do with it, and it's your neurotransmitters, right? So that's what happens in. And this is very, very misunderstood. Society's starting to catch on to some key ones, but there's a lot more other ones that we don't fully understand. So as we dive into brain chemicals, I'm just going to cover a few here that are most important. And first one is dopamine. I covered this in a lot more detail throughout different workshops, but in general, just understand, dopamine is your motivation. If this is screwed up, chances are you're going to have a hard time doing what you think you should do for your health. Repeat that one more time. If this brain chemical is messed up, you are going to have, actually not just for health, you're just in general, going to have a hard time doing the things you know you should be doing, and you're going to have a hard time finding motivation for that, right? That's pretty cool that something so complex and common in the world can be fixed by addressing brain chemicals. Really got to understand what you're doing there, and I'll cover that in the future, what to do there when it's broken. But just to answer a better question, or ask a better question for you, you go, okay, this is what's going on. What do I kind of know? What kind of things have I heard from 10% Fitter? And now you go do more research. So this is why I'm showing this really broad workshop today, to show you this complete picture of all these different components, so you can start asking better questions. Dopamine, right, supposed to spike. That gets us motivated to do the activity because the return on the activity, the reward, is greater than the work what our mind thinks it has to do. When that's broken, we're not motivated and want to do it. The next one that many people are familiar with is serotonin. Serotonin is our happy hormones, right? We talked about dopamine is kind of our motivation. Serotonin is our happiness. It helps us to remain calm. It plays a lot of role. Both dopamine and serotonin play a lot of role in our food choices, binge eating, and different things like that. But serotonin is your happiness. When this is screwed up, people are depressed. Now, 80 to 90% is produced in our gut. This is why people are starting to understand that gut health is really, really important for not being depressed and fixing depression. But once again, that's not a common knowledge. That's not something that somebody says all the time, nor will your doctor talk about it. Majority of your doctors, unfortunately. Not that I'm against doctors, but you need to understand doctors do not often keep up with updated information that we in the health industry constantly have to. They went to school 10, 15, 20 years ago, guys, and health knowledge shifts so fast, so much. What we thought was absolute truth 10 years ago, 15 years ago, like cholesterol is bad for you, it's not true anymore. We've shifted, we've changed, right? So understand, if happiness is a problem, could be a serotonin issue, and ultimately gut health issue and other things like that. From there, we get norepinephrine. Norepinephrine is your focus, right? That's your ability to stay focused. Usually kids or adults with ADHD and ADD problems, they have a norepinephrine and a dopamine problem. Once again, chemicals that get in the way of us focusing. So now I hope you're starting to see how health is so freaking important for your business performance. Like I got in a conversation with a guy from Goldman Sachs the other day, and we're talking, and he's like, yeah, we don't care about this. We're grind, we perform. And I'm like, what you don't understand is if you give me an hour for your health, I will give you 2 to 3 hours back. It's an investment because your focus is better. Your mood is better. Your decision making is better. You make less mistakes. And then you don't have to recover from those mistakes and spend time correcting them. Do it right from the start. While improving your appearance, self-confidence, confidence, moving better, feeling better, and not being so freaking distracted. So understand that investing into your health, I'm showing this, it's truly an investment. It's not a cost, because for every dollar you spend, corporate wellness, as an example, right now is getting about $7 to $9 back. So time is the same thing as money. If you invest $1 of time, or a unit of time, I should say, you're going to get 7 to 9 times back in that time investment, right? So you need to stop making excuses for yourself, guys. Stop putting off health as something secondary. It's the most primary thing you can focus on. I'm serious. Everything ties into it. If anybody wants to have a conversation and argue with me in comments, let me know. Hey, Morocco, thanks for joining in. That's awesome. So moving from there, we get into the last one. It's not the last one that exists. There's many neurotransmitters, but these are key ones that we know in society. Oxytocin, the love hormone, right? When you look a dog in the eyes for a while, makes you feel amazing. When you hug somebody, makes you feel amazing. Guys, try hugging for 6 seconds or more. It really creates that bond between people. I know it may be uncomfortable, but I'm telling you, if you ever met a good hugger, they just kind of make you relax. Their shoulders drop, make you feel good, but just hold them for 6 seconds. And I'm telling you, you're going to get such a benefit from it. I usually tell people, if you can, 8 hugs a day for 6 seconds a hug, you're going to be amazed at what you can do for your mental health and different components of health in general. So now we've covered the mind, right? That was a big macro component. From there, now we're getting into internal health. That's the next big component. As you can see, all those different pieces around there. I'm not going to cover each one of them. I'm just going to show you that this is how everything's connected. If you got an issue with your, something like digestion, you may have arthritis, you may have Hashimoto's disease with your thyroid, you may have all sorts of autoimmune issues going on. I'll show you that why in a second. But understand that everything is connected, not just part to part, but within individual parts, subcomponents are very connected. And a subcomponent of one can drastically impact the subcomponent of another. So the first component of internal health within 10% fitter model. Rick, understand, guys, everybody is going to have different systems. I'm giving you one system to align to that has accomplished massive results for people. Guys that worked anywhere from Fortune 500 executives to stay-at-home moms, and their lives become changed. Whether they become more effective at work, they become better with their kids, they become better in relationships, all of this is impacted through the 10% fitter method. So looking at this, we're looking at stress management skills, right? That's the first thing that we're looking at as ability to have good internal health. Stress accounts, ready for this? 80 to 95% of all health ailments these days, right? So imagine if you just learn how to truly manage your stress, you're reducing your risk factors across 80 to 95% of all health ailments out there. That's how important it is, guys, and that's why stress is the forefront of everything I talk about. Killed my dad a long time ago, and I don't want it to happen to you either. I can see bodies dropping. I know this is getting a little bit long, but if you guys can rewatch this later and at least grasp the high level points, because if you paid $500 to $1,000 for this trading, you'd be on it. But because it's free, it's hard to find value. But I'm telling you guys, this is important for you. From there is gut health, right? So this is the important piece I wanted to point out. 70% of your immune system exists in your gut. So if you got psoriasis, you got skin issues, you got autoimmune issues, you got arthritis, if your gut's not in a good place, that's where a lot of that's coming from. But you just don't understand these things because no people talk to you about it. General science doesn't understand it, and I'm freaking boring, so I can't get you through an hour presentation without getting you jump off. So that's an important component is gut health. From there, we get into your hormonal health, right? So in general, all of your hormones. Here's some symptoms, right? Headache, mood swings, weight gain, fatigue, digestion problems, insomnia, memory loss, all can come from your hormones, poor hormones. We have your sex hormones, we have thyroid hormones, we have anabolic hormones that create muscle and build and burn fat. We have hormones that make us full, hormones that tell us we're hungry, and if those things are jacked up, we're not getting full and we're getting hungry way too much, right? So all of that is not just in your head, all of that is in your body. From there, we get into the next big component, and we're going to start to wind this thing down because I know I've been talking for a long time. Nourishment. Notice what I didn't do. Did I call this diet? No, diet is a negative connotation. trying not to use that word because diet represents deprivation. We're avoiding things. That's not how you change, guys. Behavior change, I mean, you can go and listen to a lot of people on social media teach you things, but they're not behavior change specialists. These people just know knowledge. They don't know how to take this knowledge and make you shift to the desired destination. That's what I am. I'm a behavior change specialist on top of a million other things that I am. So I'm telling you, it's about nourishment. It's not about away from poor food choices. It's chasing fuel for your body. Understand, are you going to put shitty fuel into a Ferrari? You would never do that. But you put shitty fuel in your body. Can you get a new Ferrari? No problem. Piece of cake. Can you get a new body? No, you can't. Yes, you can recover. Your body can take so much. But at some point, things will catch up and it'll become a problem. So stop thinking about dieting as avoiding bad foods. Start thinking about nourishment as chasing the right fuel to optimize your business and life performance. A different mindset, guys. From there, we get into the first component of nourishment, which was the second workshop that I covered last week. You can get a recording if you go to www.perspectiveforce.com/10% fitter. Relationship with food. That's a very misunderstood thing when it comes down to diet. You're conditioned to make the choices that you do, and you have no awareness to where that conditioning came from or how it occurs. Bottom line, 95% of you listening to this fall into this category. Yet the stuff that I'm talking about right now would change your life straight up. Sit down, start journaling about your understanding of food, go through, watch the video and start doing these things. You wouldn't recognize yourself for nutrition, and you don't need nutritional knowledge. I promise you, you already know enough nutritional knowledge to be successful. You know to eat whole natural foods. You know to minimize processed sugar. You know to get enough calories, but not too many calories throughout the day. If you just did those things and you fix your relationship with food, you'd be amazed how far you would come. From relationship with food, the next component of nourishment within 10% fitter and the big picture of health is your blood sugar regulation, right? So I talked about that a little bit in the past, and I'll probably recover it many times over. And really, when I talk about foundation of nutrition in the upcoming week, or actually later this week. But normal blood sugar should not spike a lot, should not drop a lot. So as you see it on the screen, that black line, that's a perfect blood sugar. Perfect blood sugar is about 84. I forget what the measurement is, but 84 is a perfect blood sugar. If we're going much higher than that, that's a problem. Here's the issue, guys. Your doctor, we're going to talk about tomorrow why your doctor is not always right, and I have a guest with me, Virginie LeMay Vreitsday, who's a partner of mine, but who's overcome a lot of doctor challenges, said she wouldn't be able to, she did it. So I'm bringing it on tomorrow to make myself a little bit more interesting. But understand, if you have big spikes, big drops, you're going to have issues, you're going to have problems, you're going to have hormonal issues and stuff like that. So doctors will not comment on it until it goes over 125. That's when you consider pre-diabetic. Optimal is 84. Big gap. Understand, there's a big difference between diagnosed with something and being optimal. And I know, but I don't want to live in a state of being good enough. I want to live in a state of my potential, of what my body's designed to be. And the thing is, guys, and I keep preaching on this, you forgot what good feels like. I'm telling you, like, unless you're 1% of 1% out there that's truly optimized, you forgot what good feels like. So how can you chase something if you don't remember what good feels like? How can you want to sacrifice for something, for your body, for your health, if you don't know what it feels like? That's why it's important to start some of these 30-day focus points and go for 30 days and cut something out or add something in or do something better and notice a change. Become aware about it, journal about it, and then go, I did it. I feel good about that accomplishment. Now look at how I feel. That dopamine thing we talked about, now when you go to tell your body to do more of this, what is it going to associate it with? Positivity, great outcomes. And now you're going to do more of it. Typical person starts a diet, starts a workout plan, they don't understand the big picture, they start running 100 miles per hour, they fail. What is their association with health now? Positive or negative? Negative. Next time their body wants to do healthy things, their dopamine spiking and telling their body, hey, let's go get healthy. No, it's going, hey, you tried last time. It failed. It made you feel miserable. Now go crawl in a hole, cry in a pillow, eat your ice cream, because that feels much better than putting yourself out for health. Guys, this is why understanding the big picture is important. And that's why I don't feel bad for people. I'm like, yeah, this is dry. This is not what people want to see. Everybody's like, oh, deliver what your audience wants. Really? So then I just make you excited and entertained, but you never really learn anything, guys. That's not my goal. That's not what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm trying to give you the tools necessary at a very macro level so then you can ask better questions. And then after we're done with 7 weeks, I promise you guys, I won't leave you hanging. I'll continue to educate you in application because you're just experiencing different things throughout these 7 weeks. And then with accordance of 10% fit method, we're going to apply one at a time moving forward. Oh, I love that. Already began a challenge month without sugar. You're going to be amazed. I don't want to butcher your name, Zainab. I'm not sure if that's how you say it, but you're going to be amazed at how far that one single change will go. I'm telling you, just you'll see, but journal. Please journal everything because you need to become more aware about these changes and transformation and attribute a lot more of the positive effects that you're feeling towards that choice and attribute some of the negative things that went away towards that choice. And then you'll be much more likely to execute not eating processed sugar. I'm not saying like, and guys, I'm not an advocate of absolutes, right? It's not about never eating sugar. But after 30 days, you're much more aware and much more conscious on what that sugar does to your body. So with clients I do this, right? They start to eat better, they start to eat cleaner, they're everything in their body's starting to perform, they're feeling better. And now all of a sudden they go and have that sugar or they have that food they've been avoiding. They wake up tired and not feeling good. And if they've been journeying all along, they catch the difference. Then all of you are bright individuals. All of you are super smart. So you're going to connect that and go, okay, I see a difference in my journal. I see the way I'm behaving. I see a pattern break. What is different about what I did? Oh, I had a bunch of Twinkies yesterday, or I had a bunch of, processed carbs, whatever you've been avoiding, or sugar, or dairy, or doesn't matter. And now I'm feeling negative. So now we start creating that negative association with food that is bad for us and positive association with food that is good for us. That is power, guys. That's how you subconsciously start making decisions. Because the reality is, it's much easier to get into a menu, look at it, and go, I know exactly what it's going to do for me, and I know exactly what it's not going to do for me. So for those reasons, I'm going to just choose it automatically, right? That's when you become powerful as a human being, when your health choices are so conditioned and habitual and proper that it becomes automatic. Guys, so I appreciate somebody smashing the like button, guys. If you like this content, just, feed my ego a little bit. Like, make the guy feel good. I'm giving this time away. Smash that like button so people can see you appreciate it. Leave me comments and, share with as many people as you can. From there, the next component of nourishment is going to be your eating principles, right? It's not 7. I just kind of threw that on the board, but I'll cover that in foundational nutrition coverage topics in the future. God, I can't talk today. But there's eating principles. Trying to fixate on being perfect with nutrition is complex. But if you have a progression of principles, right? So like as an example, one principle can be before you eat, I want you to spend 5 minutes in mind and body scan. That's a behavior that we build. So for one, we're going to make you more aware of your food choices. For two, we're going to bring your stress response down so you're not as reactive with your food choices. We're going to bring the powerful human into the picture and kind of calm down the caged animal at the bottom of your brain and let the choices be made instead of, smart ones, educated ones, logical ones, instead of reactive feelings and different things like that. The other example would be like eating until you're 80% full. This is something that I cover a lot. And imagine this. There's a difference between mechanical fullness and true satiety. Mechanical fullness is when your belly's stuffed. Anybody's been belly stuffed but not satisfied in the brain? It happens because you didn't get the right stuff in. And vice versa. There's been times when you're satisfied in your brain and you're not stuffed. You're not walking away from a meal feeling like, oh my God. Because fullness is different from stuffness and satiety is different from all of that, right? We just need to be satisfied. We don't need to be full and stuffed. We just need to be satisfied with our hunger. And the last component of nourishment, and then we got one more to cover, is movement, but the last one is going to be your nutrient balance and supplementation, right? When your body has the right amount of nutrients that it should, when it's able to absorb those nutrients. Guys, this is so key. I talk about this all the time when I talk about gut health, but I've mentioned this a few times. Everybody says you are what you eat. That's how simplistic we make things. It's not true. You are what you eat. We didn't have digestive problems 50 years ago, but now we do because of all the things that we do to our body, like stress, processed foods, and many other things. So if your body's not absorbing those nutrients, it doesn't matter. It's what you pull into your bloodstream and what you absorb. So there's some really key nutrients that you're not getting enough of. Magnesium is one. 85% of America is deficient in magnesium. I'm not sure about the global number because I know we have global viewers. But magnesium, chances are, if you are under a lot of stress, you're not eating green leafy vegetables like 12 servings a day, chances are you're deficient in magnesium. It plays 300 different enzymatic functions in your body. How many, Anton? 300 different enzymatic functions in your body. 85% of America deficient, plays 300 different functions in our body, yet doctors are not talking about it left and right. That's a problem, guys. We need to start empowering ourselves with better understanding of health and why I'm doing this. So when your doctor tells you, hey, we need to do this, you go, you know what? These symptoms are indicative of magnesium deficiency. Why don't we just start with that before I go on some serious medications that I may be on for life? And guys, you don't know how many people have taken off medications that doctors prescribed to them that said they would be on them for life by simply managing people's nutrient balance, getting better nutrients into their system. And then supplementation, right? Here's the thing about supplements. Is it called replacement? Do you see anywhere on the screen called replacement? No, but that's how people treat supplements. So I'm going to eat like shit. I'm going to do things like shit, but then I'm going to throw some multivitamins in my body. I'm going to think I'm good. It doesn't work like that. You still need to make good choices. They're meant to augment what is missing from natural diet. We've killed our soil. We no longer get the minerals from our soil like we used to. So we need multivitamins, unfortunately, to get that into our body. So understand, supplement isn't just a portion. I'm going to cover this in a lot more detail in upcoming workshops, but just high level. Last one, and then I'm done. I appreciate you guys keeping up and staying with me. We're about at an hour. I'm trying to keep these things under an hour. So movement, right? Like once again, notice my choice of words within 10% fitter. Did I call this exercise? Did I call this lifting weights, throwing 400 pounds over your head, CrossFit, high intensity training? None of that. Because movement is specific to the individual that's doing it, specific to the environment you're in, specific to an area of life that you're in. There's so many different components of movement, but if you just focus on exercise, you're going to have dysfunctional movement. If you just focus on yoga and don't do some of the other things, you're going to have dysfunctions. If you just focus on walking and not doing some of the other things, you're going to have dysfunction. So it's a complete picture. So let's dive into understanding what are the components of movement. I'll cover these four and then we'll wrap up. So with movement is first and foremost functionality. That's what I started last week when I introduced and I talked about stability, mobility, and flexibility. I still owe you exercises. I'm going to do this. I'll send them out from last week. If you're watching this recording in the future, you'll probably already get them. But if you're watching this from last week, I still got to record those real quick and do it. I've just been swamped this week. So understand functionality. Basic movement patterns. You got to squat, you got to lunge, you got to push, you got to pull, you got to bend, twist, and gait, kind of how your body moves. Let me see here. Got a comment. Hey, Jonathan, what's up, man? Thank you for the great nutritional insights, Anton, and just reminding me to take a moment to mindfully consider my choices of what I eat. Yep, and that's powerful, guys. That's just, I'm telling you, if you just take 5 minutes and consider some of the components that I've talked about, better have every single movement that are not counteracted with stretching, activation, and proper muscle, balance. So we have those issues, and that means that the way you sit, the way you function throughout the day is inhibited. What does that do? Creates pain, distraction, and it takes you away from living an optimized life. It takes you away from performing at work, where all you had to do in the morning is do a 15-minute yoga flow that brought you back all that focus that you experienced distraction from feeling pain and moving improperly, right? Remember, everything I'm talking about, I'm going to remind you, is an investment. There is no cost. Because whether you invest money into it, you're going to get 7 to 9 times back the return that you did in money, statistically speaking, or time. The same thing. It's a unit of resource, right? So if you invest that time, you're going to get 7 to 9 times back of that time back by focusing better, by making less mistakes, by interacting with people socially better, by networking better. Guys, your health has everything to do with networking. You're on LinkedIn right now. That's a networking platform. Do you realize that when you're unhealthy, you're suck at networking? And it's relative because you could still be good. You're so far from your potential. And that's what I always want for you guys. I don't want you just to be good by some, nominal number somebody came up with. I want you to be successful at the level that you're capable of being successful. And we're all different when it comes down to that. The next component is going to be strength and muscle. So much dysfunction comes from not having enough. Guys, all this is about, I just want you to think very simple thing. Think about your grandparents. How do they move? Right? And maybe you're lucky to where you have grandparents that are very functional. But if you're like majority of grandparents out there, when they get past 80, they can't move. Now, checking up on a client that I didn't work with her directly. She was one of my best friend's clients. They worked together for many years. She She's 79 and she deadlifts 205 pounds. Many of you can't pick up 205 pounds at 40 years old. And she can at 200, she can at 79. She didn't start when she was 40. She didn't start when she was 20. She started when she was 70. Right? So it's never too late. But the point that I'm making, she can do anything she wants until she dies. And I promise you that, unless something obviously crazy happens. Where how many people continue to live, they're just surviving. They're no longer golfing. They're no longer functioning. They're not having fun with their grandkids, and all these issues are going on. Why? Not enough strength, not enough muscle. Your body ate that muscle tissue, and now you can't get it out of the chair. Take a look at old people. Many of them have to use like assistance to get back and out of a chair because their legs are the first to go. And that's usually the biggest thing we avoid training. Everybody loves upper body, right? Women a little bit better with glutes because, and I'm seeing guys now, finally, guys are training their legs better because now it's more popular for a guy to have a big butt. I've been blessed, decently all my life playing sports, but lately I'm like, oh, my rump's kind of getting small. I got to grow that thing again. But anyway, guys, the point of this is fun. That's what it's about. It's not about aesthetics and having, a big bicep and looking swole. That's not what we preach in 10% Fitter, guys. We're not preaching having to be a six-pack person. I can get you there, I can help you there, but, that's not what we're after. We're about general, complete health. So it's more about function and things like that and thriving into your later years versus surviving. From there, we get to neuromuscular communication, and that's an important one. This one's close to my heart, guys, and I tell a story here. My grandma raised me for a better part of my life. After my dad passed away when I was 8, my grandma was there because my mom was working her butt off to try to provide for my family as a single parent. So I lived with my grandma quite often, and we were very close. She was a woman, very religious, cared about the world, but she struggled with some things, like everybody else was a little negative, but I loved her to death. So why am I telling you this? My grandma passed away years from a stroke, but it wasn't stroke that killed her. Yes, it was the ultimate thing that did it, but 6 months prior to a stroke, my grandma fell and broke her hip. From that break and the healing process, the blood clot that was developed went to her brain and created a stroke, and that ultimately killed her. Had she not fallen, the stroke wouldn't have happened. So it was ultimately the fall that killed my grandma. I'm a root cause analysis kind of person. I always deep dive into where everything came from. So why am I getting at this? Everybody talks about getting older. What's the leading injury for elderly? This is not even close. Falls. Falls are the leading injury for elderly. But it's not just about balance. Everybody thinks about, oh, I won't fall if I can stand on one leg and balance. It's not just about that. Neuromuscular communication is a vital component. What it has to do with reaction time. So how fast does your leg recognize that you're losing balance, send to the brain that something needs to be done, the brain communicates back to the leg that it needs to step out and brace itself? How fast does that happen? As you get older, that gets slower and slower. But think about this. It's not just the way your brain communicates. It's the way that your brain, your mind, your brain and brain components communicate. So if you're not neuromuscularly effective, your business performance struggles. Your decision-making struggles. Instead of taking a 1 millisecond to make a decision, you're taking 2. And it may not seem like a big deal because it's such a small time, but when you compound it into thousands of millions of decisions that you make throughout the day that are subconscious, that slows you down a lot. So once again, this is why it's important to invest into your health. So that neuromuscular communication is reaction time, responsiveness. That's why a lot of big things are coming out right now that professionals are being trained in reaction time, right? Personal trainers out there that are doing little red light, green light. It's one of many components. They're swearing by it, this is the system. I'm like, you just have a tool. It's just one tool. It does help, but it's not a complete picture. And the last one is power, right? Power is something different from strength. Strength is something we talk about when it comes down to your muscle, right? That's really what it's all about. Power has to do with your neurology. It's your neurons in your muscle, neurons in your body that react and make you do crazy things. Anybody here hear a story, of a car fell on a kid and a mom went and picked up that car off the kid? Or some crazy feat that a mom did or somebody did when they were just reacted. Never consciously could that parent do that and come in and walk up and pick up a car. But why did it happen? Because all those neurons in their body lit up and instantly activated at once. So the difference here is like a power lifter versus a bodybuilder, right? Bodybuilders are massive. They're really big people, but they're not as strong as some of these power lifters. Not power lifters, but think Olympic lifters, right? Those people that throw weights overhead. They're more powerful, not simply because they're strong. It's speed, it's acceleration, it's ability to generate that force once. You ask them to do it 10 times, they'll die because their body's not conditioned for that. They're a one rep athlete. They know how to generate that force in one rep. So that's really it, guys. That's really the whole presentation today. Tomorrow I have Virginie with me, and we're going to talk about why your doctor is not always right. I'm going to talk about many cases. I'm going to talk about difference between how we assess in naturopathic medicine, holistic preventive medicine, versus how we assess in reactive Western medicine, and really the difference between them all. And Virginie's much more entertaining than I am, so hopefully it'll be more interesting for you guys. Then Saturday and Sunday we have more workshops that are coming up. So just make sure you're following 10% Fitter on LinkedIn if you want to be notified through live, or go to www.prospectiveforce.com/10% Fitter to be emailed whenever I'm doing these things. So guys, thank you so much. Just want to remind you all, I need you to catch the bigger pictures. If you have to suffer through boring me for 25 hours, then suffer through boring me. But why am I doing it? Because I have absolute zero doubt that if you go through this, your life will be changed. So if you need more time and take longer than 25 hours and 7 weeks, take it gradually, take it slower. But don't not take it. Don't not take it because it's not entertaining. I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to change your life through education and knowledge. And unfortunately, if I try to entertain you, guess what's happening? Your brain is not focused on learning. Your brain is focused on the squirrels, bright lights, and different things. I have all the software in the world to pop up and make things interactive and live, and it's not going to take you deep inside yourself and really learn this information. So guys, keep tuning in, keep following, and most importantly, share this with your loved one, guys. It's a digital product. It doesn't matter to me if one of you is watching or 1,000 of you is watching, but it matters to those 1,000 that are watching. So spread the love, share with your people. We're going to be going through the end of March, Thursday through Sunday, between 9 and 10 a.m. usually is when I start. I have to start a little later today because I had some technical difficulties. But guys, I just so grateful for each one of you. I'm seeing, there's a bunch of people that are watching this. I watched the numbers. You are the real deal. Who's watching this right now? You care enough to sit through a little bit of boredom to empower yourself with knowledge about health. And remember, I don't expect you to know everything. That's why I'm throwing everything at you. I need you to identify areas that are problematic to you and ultimately ask better questions.